Da, 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 da. Welcome, greetings. Thank you for being here today. So, today is August 9th, 2024. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the calendar. Because what's going on with the 8-8 portal, right? So, let's see. It was about around 2017, 2018 that I'd ever heard of this Lionsgate portal. I had never heard of these portals before. I had thought about the numbers, and I've thought about numbers before, but I hadn't ever heard of this portal situation until a group I got involved with, right? And one of the wizards of the group. Okay. So, recently, as you know, when I talk about the calendar, I talk about the Gregorian calendar. And I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I apologize. Not the Gregorian calendar. First of all, I talk about the 9-day calendar, which I'm pretty solid on, okay? I also include the Julian calendar because the Julian calendar is 13 days backwards from the Gregorian calendar. So if we're going off of the Julian calendar, because I looked up about portals, and what I found out about portals is that this goes back to Sopdet, aka Sirius, and it is when you start seeing Sirius rising or setting in the morning, rising in the morning or setting in the morning. You can see Sirius. And so when that happened, it was a signal that there was a shift happening. And so then we brought in tarot cards, and so the number 8 tarot card is strength, which typically is expressed by a lion. And then we have the infinity symbol, which is 8 turned sideways. And then we have the 2 numbers together, which can create a gateway because it is 2, which also, like Gemini, looks like 2 opened, split. I'm not doing it well with my fingers, but it's 2 lines connected at the top, so it looks like a gateway. Or the number 11 is also a gateway. So if you take 8 times 11, you would get 88, right? So then you have 88 gates, right? So there's this gateway idea. But it goes back to the Egyptian calendar, which is originally a sun calendar predominantly. And that is where the Julian calendar came from. So that's why I mention it, because well, let's look at the numbers. So I looked at the numbers. I did this, and then we just came out of a full moon. No. I apologize. Okay, I'm in the wrong spot. We just came out of a new moon, and then 3 days later. So go by the new moon, I apologize, again, the moon calendar. The 8-8 energetic day was Saturn and Venus, which I find very interesting. And I will just say the whole month of August is extremely energetic because there's a lot going on in the sky. Oh, and side note, when Sopdet, aka Sirius, Sopdet is a goddess. So they changed, she was one of the creation goddesses, Sopdet, Sirius, and the name got changed to Sirius. Anyhow, the star doing that signified the flooding of the Nile. Well, just because, my theory is everything is here first, and that the Mississippi and the Colorado are linked to the upper and lower Egypt, so to speak, rivers. Anyhow, this happens. In reading this about Sirius and Sopdet, which is the same thing, it's just the goddess name is Sopdet. when this is said to really happen isn't in August, it's in June. Well, that's two things. So it would be the Julian calendar going backwards because it would still be June, 13 days ago. Okay. And what else floods in June? The Mississippi. June and July. So I found that interesting. Now, back to the numbers. Okay, so if we take 8 plus 8 plus 8, because we had August, which is the 8th month, then it was the day of the 8th, and then you add 8 for 2024, you get 6. Okay, so we have that, and then we have 8, and then it breaks down to 6. And then if you only added 8 plus 8, it would actually be 7, right? So you do the first 8 and 8, because it's August 8th, and it's the 8th day. Well, that actually equals 7, right? 8 and 8 is 16, 1 and 6 is 7. So, is it an 8 day? I don't know. Then, it is also 13. 7 plus 6 is 13, right? If you take the 8 plus 8, and then you take the 24, which would be all the numbers put together, it equals 13. I just thought that was interesting. But what happens is, and then we come to today, which is the 9th, because wouldn't a portal take you somewhere? In my theory, because of the way the earth rotates, it's never just one day. It's about 24 hours. Whatever it is about 24 hours. Why I'm thinking of it really quickly, because it reminded me, and this is how it's just going to go sometimes. I was doing some reading because that's what I do. I saw that the moon is only, and this is what one of the apps, I want to say sidereal, but that's not what it's called. I can't think of it right now. I apologize. But it's a star app that points out that the moon is only in a new moon or in a full moon for a certain amount of time. But it takes the human eye a few days to see the moon again in its different, for example, like it will only be a full moon for a few minutes, but we will still see it as a full moon. So there is actual scientific backing for that as well. Okay. So though I have it, for so many days, we're going off of that because that's what the human eye sees, right? That's what we see from here from Earth. And I found some interesting things matching that. Okay, back to the numbers. So that was yesterday. So if you come to today, which would be the 9th, which is, a big deal number, it is 7 again. You would have 8 plus 9, which is 25, and then you add 8, and that actually comes to 18, which comes to 9, which is interesting, right? Did I do that right? So the fun thing about 9 is whatever you add it to, it comes back to the same number. So 9 plus 7 is 7 again, right? 9 plus, why did I say 7? 9 plus 8 is 8. So today, and then 8 and 8 is 16. So it would come back down to a 7. That's how so both yesterday and today actually add to 7s. And my theory about 7s. 7s are angles. And there's always an angle with an angle. So what? Now, if we go 13 days ahead from yesterday, okay, it would be energetically or planetarily, it'd be Earth and Uranus. So it would be a little bit auspicious. If you add 8 plus 3 together, you get 10. So you have a 1. Don't get me wrong. I think 10s also have an agenda. There's usually something fake about it, usually a 10. But it also is supposed to mean completion. I personally think 9 is the completion number. However, that is some of the energy that's going out right now. But my point is that it's a 1. Then you add the date Oh, I apologize. I didn't say the date. So 13 days from yesterday will be the 21st of August. It will also be a few days after the full moon. Okay? If you add 21, which is actually, 2 plus 1 is 3, and you add 8 plus 3, it equals 11. Okay? So, gateway. Then you add the other 8, and then that equals 19, and you get 9 plus 1 is 20. So 20 is a 2, which is another gateway. Now, then you follow it into the next day, which is the 22nd. It is Mercury-Neptune energy. You have basically 4, which is 2 plus 2. So you have a double gateway, 22, which would be 2 times 11, right? 22. And you have 4 plus 8 plus 8, which equals 20. And it's a Mercury day, which is linked to Gemini and 2. Okay? So, my theory is the true portal is the 21st of this month. Because you have literally a gateway number with 8 plus 3, 11. The next day is 22. It has 11 all over it. Mercury and 20 on the 22nd. So that's what it adds up to. So if we're talking about numerical things and we're using number, energies, the 21st, and then you also have 3. Okay. Because of the 21st, 4 the next day, but there is definitely a portal, a gateway energy with the numbers specifically. But if you do that for yesterday and then today, the number you're getting is 7. And 7, from what I've seen, is always an angle. It's not always bad, but it's an angle. Okay, now moving on, because I got very excited about that. I want to share that with you guys because, as I said before, I'm always finding something interesting about the calendar. And then as I was looking up the Egyptian one, there's a whole, the author of that article that I basically shared with you information about, soap debt and that story, has a whole nother article about Egyptian calendar, about the Egyptian calendar. So, I'm going to read that. I'll share it with you guys. Okay. Also, I wanted to kind of continue or give an update or part 2 of the North American gods and goddesses that I shared in my last video. And, because I didn't really tell you the story of Sedna, and I want to share the story with you. I also just heard of a Japanese goddess. So in Japan right now, and I'm learned this from following For the Love of History podcast. You can check her out. Her stuff is always fascinating, and it's always predominantly women that she focuses on. What she's doing right now in Japan, it's kind of like Halloween to like America. It was a way to pass the summertime heat away. They tell scary stories because it gives you chills, right? Anyhow, there is a goddess, I say goddess, but a being of the sea. So it's kind of like Halloween. So it would be considered maybe not a very good being, but this being is not horrible and is basically a sea goddess. And she would give fish to the fishermen, but if you made her angry, she would also take the fish away from you. And I thought, okay, there's probably, and this is Japan, just to repeat. So there is, the way that it was described was like Sedna, which is also, the bestower of fish, and If you upset her, she could also take them away from you. There sounds like I'm hoping to continue finding more links to the Mami Wata or the Yamanya type archetype deity around the world. It's pretty cool. Okay, and so I will tell you some of the things. So in the other video I talked about, so Sedna is Inuit, and the story about her is, there's several stories. I'll tell the nicest one. And I know I did do a video about this before because I think she's in the Goddess 365 Days of Goddesses. She so I think she was very picky about who she was going to marry. And so she finally decided to marry somebody. And she is the daughter of the creator god. His name is Anguta. And he creates earth and sea and heavenly bodies. And she is his daughter. And she creates all living things and is also considered Inuit's protective deity. The story is that she finally gets married, but the person she married is not cool. So her father comes to rescue her. Oh, he is the god of wind or something like that. Like, he's not awesome, who she decides to marry. And so her father comes to rescue her. And as they're leaving in a boat, her ex basically creates a storm. And when she falls over the boat, something about trying to save the boat, and the father basically doesn't help her, makes it worse. And so when she sinks to the bottom, oh, and she had a dog with her. She had a very devout dog. So I also see some links with Hecate. Again, underworld energy. So she's also seen oftentimes with her dog. Because her dog was very protective of her, even when she was married to this not awesome deity. So she sinks to the bottom, and her father ends up, she tries to stay on, and her father, I hate this story, cuts off her fingers, and part of her fingers become some of the sea animals, and she becomes like a mermaid, but also there's a dog with her sometimes. So I wanted to share that story with you. Also, in my research of a lot of these stories, because in that video I also said I have a book that has some like legends and myths. They're not awesome stories. Most of them are very anti-feminine, or it's very similar to a lot of the stories we hear in the Western world. I was like, what? This cannot be. Okay, so anyhow, I don't like that story. And there's a new myth that her father now lives with her. I was like, oh, of course he does. What the heck? All right, moving on. Okay. I could not find, because I wanted to find a link to Spider Woman, so I'm still going to do some research on that, and I will share it with you. And that deity that's supposed to be linked to Spider Woman is Teotihuacan. And I couldn't find her, but I found Tlatzoltetl, which is super cool. Tlatzoltetl, who is the goddess of filth, the goddess of garbage. She is the lady of confessions. So, her favorite beings are female healers, midwives, witches, and weavers. She is the spirit of magic, healing, love, desire, cleansing, and garbage, such as cleanses individuals and the earth of spiritual debris, sin, shame, and there is a bathhouse that she supposedly intuited to the people, and that is called a temescal, meaning sweet bathhouse. Okay, she's linked to that. And then, yeah, she is also, there is also a famous statue where she is clothless, squatting in labor, and this image appears as the stolen idol in Raiders of the Lost Ark. I gotta check that out just to see that part. I kind of remember that, but I didn't remember specifically that it was a female. So again, they're telling us stuff, just saying, in a movie. Meow. Other traditional images show her riding a broom, clothless, except for a peaked hat, like a triangle shaped hat, which has been called a witch's hat, but you will also see like wizards will wear them because it's a triangle. And I will repeat again that it's also similar to quote unquote a dunce hat. So this shape, right? This shape, this triangle shape, is supposed to make you smarter. It's supposed to bring in divine wisdom. It's supposed to open up certain energies. That's why. Okay? So, and anyways, the triangle shaped hat, or the witch's quote unquote witch's hat, was made of bark. So this is Talazzo Tio. I paused it with my arm. Yeah. Talazzo Tetol. Talazzo Tetol. Okay, so that's what I found. Trying to find the other one. Okay, there is with the Lakota. I wanted to go a little bit more into also the Dene tribe, because there is so much. There are so many myths and stories linked to that tribe, and then that there is also different languages within the Pueblo Indians, which is what they're linked to, and they're vast. It's not just like one area. And there's something. There was a story that I had found that I was going to share, but I think it's on my phone. Okay. So, and then before I had spoken about Atira, which was the Pani goddess of creation, and or the earth goddess. So her name literally translates to our mother and or vault of the sky, which is another name for Isis, vault of the sky. Okay, then all right, I will find this one. I live near this clan, so to speak, at this time, which is the Klamath people, and they have a very interesting story. They have a very interesting story. So I'm going to find that and share that with you. And then there's a couple more. And then there's the Pawnee mythology. So I'm going to grab those really quickly. All right, so this first one is Whopi. Whopi. WHWOHPE. Whopi. This is Lakota mythology. It is a spirit of peace, the daughter of Wi, W-I, and the moon, Hanjehepi Wi. She is the wife of the south wind. When she visited the earth, she gave Lakota people a pipe as a symbol of peace. Later, Whopi became conflated with the white buffalo calf woman. An alternate name for Whopi is something I would have very much trouble pronouncing, but it's long. Kawashin Pahetahin Kalashahin. That's the best I could do. And a symbol of Whopi's coming to Earth, she is often associated with falling stars. So I wanted to share that because I feel like I didn't really give much information about um, Lakota. And then that was linked to Inyan, the rock creator, the rock that creates earth, sun, and sky. Inyan. It's also Lakotan. And then we have the Klamath myth. So this is near here, the Klamath tribes. So the Klamath myths include where there is Lao. Okay, wait. Okay, this is a long one. So, but there it talks about the creation of Crater Lake, where my theory, because I hadn't read the story, is that Crater Lake is actually a broken tree that is now filled with water. However, the Klamath people have their own mythology. So, this is where there's actually a connection between Klamath, Crater Lake, and Mount Shasta. So, the story, so there's Lao, Lao, Lao. And this is the god of the underworld, and this god of the underworld had a fight with the sky god Skell, like skeleton, Skell, which caused the eruption of Mount Mazama, which is the mountain Crater Lake is on, creating Crater Lake. Okay. Lao Rock is named for Lao. So, Lao and Skell. Lao is the spirit of the underworld who lived beneath Mount Mazama. Skell was the spirit of the sky, above the world. In the beginning, the stories say that Lao was able to pass through a hole and climb up to the top of Mount Mazama, where he could almost touch the stars, where Skell lived. The followers of the spirits could reportedly take from the animals such as deer, fox, and dove. They would play together. And the story goes on to explain the origins of the lake. So, the lake, okay, the story goes on to explain the origins of Crater Lake, known as Giwas, the Klamath language. And the story says that the quarrels began and the war broke out between Lao and Skell. One time Lao visited atop and said, Loa, he saw Loha, the daughter of the Klamath Indian chief, and fell in love with her. He became extremely angry when she rejected his hideous underworld nature and cursed the Klamath with fire that rained down on them. So she rejected him and he rains down fire on the people. I mean, okay. The Klamath turned to Skell for help. In response, the Klamath people's pleading, Skell descended from the sky to the top of Mount Shasta. A furious battle between the two, from Skell from Mount Shasta and Lao from Mount Mazama. Their ferociousness of the fight led to two medicine men to give themselves to help save the world, or to help, stop the fighting. And that made Skell fight harder and defeated Lao, driving him deep into the underworld. The story goes on to explain that Skell then covered the hole to the underworld with the top of Mount Mazama to imprison Lao forever. As a final act, Skell covered the remains of the dark pit with water to restore peace and tranquility to the land, which became Crater Lake. So I thought that was a pretty cool story. There is another great battle that happens between them, the last great battle between Skell and Lao. But, I don't That's probably too much for YouTube. Some of the stories are very brutal. Very brutal. And then here is a symbol. Let's see if I can blow this up. I posted this in my community before. I thought, maybe I haven't, but this is a symbol of Atira, which is basically corn. And I got this off of, it's just reflecting everything. Can't really see it. I'll try to post it in my community. Can't really see it. Yeah, oh, there. It's corn with a feather and kind of like a design at the bottom. Almost like a rattle, but not. And that is a representation of the goddess Artira. And I mean, Artira almost sounds like star. If you put an S in front of it, Satira. So, and then we'll stop there for today. I'm going to have more, more mythology to share with you when it comes to, folks and such. So, folks of the peoples. So again, just kind of telling some stories about some other deities that link to other deities, some old names. When I talked about the calendar, we talk about Sobdet, which is the name of the goddess. I'm just saying, like, it all goes back to the goddess. All right, so if you are interested in some classes and discussions talking about self-awareness and changing patterns of, say, codependency or certain traumas, you can check out my Patreon where I share classes. You can join certain tiers. There is information for all the tiers. Some are different prices. Check that out. And then also on here, we now have an option to send a super chat or a super sticker as thank you. You can check that out. I appreciate your time. Hopefully you also appreciate mine. And until next time, thank you. Put your feet on the ground, do some grounding, or do whatever you want. Also, it's a good time to put the feet on the ground. It is a powerful, energetic month. And Mother's talking. All right. Until next time. Take care.